Why do all Ghanaians seem to hate Otto Addo? Otto Addo is the current coach of the Ghana men's senior national team, the Black Stars, and has just seemingly managed to qualify them to the FIFA World Cup for the second time in a row with an outstanding record of 6 wins and 1 draw in his last 7 games in qualifying. And yet, almost every Ghanaian citizen seems to be calling for his sacking. Why is this the case? And is it actually a real possibility? Let's talk about it. But before we get into all of this, guys, welcome to the channel Oyibo Sports. If you are new here and you are a fan of this type of content, I mean Ghanaian football and football in general, then why don't you consider becoming part of the Oyibo Sports family by first of all sticking around and watching this video all the way to the end, dropping a like on the video if you enjoy what we have to say, subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our new uploads, guys. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, to really understand why a lot of Ghanaians are pushing and clamoring for Otto Addo to get sacked, I think we have to go a little bit into the past and how exactly Otto Addo managed to get into the job and his tenure so far. Before he came to the Ghana national team setup, he was a coach/scout at Borussia Dortmund, and Ghana, who at the time was on the cusp of World Cup qualification in 2022, had just parted ways with long-time Ghanaian coaching legend, I should say Milovan Rajvac, the first coach to take Ghana to a World Cup quarter-final in 2010. Much beloved, but at the time, results weren't going his way. He had just managed to sneak into the playoffs against Nigeria, and by beating, I think, South Africa 1-0, it was a very controversial game, and then he managed to mastermind arguably Ghana's worst performance at an AFCON to date. It was a group stage exit at the hands of Comoros, I think, very disastrous on the grand scheme of things, and so many Ghanaians were calling for Otto Addo's appointment based on the work he had done and was doing at Borussia Dortmund. He was a local coach. Many people saw him as a more credible replacement to Milovan Rajvac, and so he was drafted in for that 2-legged match against Nigeria, our bitter rivals, a team at the time that had a lot more pedigree than Ghana, and based off the back of recent qualification to the World Cup in 2018, better performances at the AFCON, and what was seen as a more talented squad with the likes of Osimhen, with the likes of Chukwueze was there at the time, Lukman. It was a stacked squad offensively and defensively, but he came in and managed to steady the ship. He got us World Cup qualification, 2 draws, and we got in on the away goals rule. It was scrappy, but we made it, and he got a lot of credit off the back of that performance. He had agreed actually to step down before the World Cup. He was only contracted to take us to the World Cup, but off the back of that, many Ghanaians, thought he'd done a good job, and so gave him the keys to the city, quote unquote, effectively taking us to the World Cup. And it was a decent performance at the World Cup, honestly. In a group with the likes of Portugal, with the likes of South Korea, and with the likes of Uruguay. I think many people were not expecting Ghana to go through. We didn't end up going through, but there were a lot of highs. I think the Portugal game, a narrow loss, a 4-3 loss, or a 3-2 loss, 3-2 loss to Portugal, where Inaki Williams actually flubbed his lines in the last minutes to steal a point against Portugal. And then the famous victory against South Korea, taking a 2-0 lead. South Korea, remember, at the time had the likes of Heung-min Son in their side. So it was very much, a big moment. And at the time, I think Ghana was second in the group, and all we had to do was beat Uruguay to make it to the round of 16. In hindsight, even getting a draw against Uruguay would have been enough, and we know the backstory about the Uruguay match. I won't get too much into it, obviously, but results did not go our way, and Otto Addo, with what was deemed as a decent performance at the World Cup, announced he was going to step down. Many were actually very disappointed. They thought he'd done a very good job, and deserved to stay on, but he agreed and walked away. And then Chris Hughton came in. We know Chris Hughton and all of that. I mean, I think that's a whole other video for another time. A bit of a shambolic performance, but off the back of that, again, many were calling for Otto Addo to be appointed, this time in a full-time capacity, and he was appointed. And honestly, at the time, many Ghanaians were happy, but then the tenure began, and we saw teething problems. Very different from that first, tenure of that World Cup performance, where I think in hindsight we can look at it and say, it was pretty much cobbled together at the last minute. This time, people were saying, it was his players he was calling up. This was his style of play, and it led to a lot of frustrating performances and a lot of frustrating moments for some Ghanaian players. We should take into consideration that at the time, Kudus was off the back of, groundbreaking performances both in the Premier League and for the Black Stars. We saw him at the World Cup, we saw him at the AFCON, where he wasn't fully fit but still delivered man of the match performances. In the Premier League, he was tearing it up, but it seemed with Otto Addo coming in, he was kind of stifling Kudus' performances. At the same time, too, we had players like Semenyo who were, just starting to pick up form for their club side, Bournemouth. We had Inaki Williams, who was a seasoned operator at the highest level. We had Fatawu Isahaku. We had Thomas Partey, who was bossing it with Arsenal. And yet it seemed like, Ghana were just laboring to results. The odd 1-0 here, sometimes the 0-0 draw. We saw, games against Nigeria specifically where we were losing. We were, scraping draws. And it seemed Ghana were laboring to results. Now, again, in hindsight, I can say that, you don't build a team like this overnight, but people were looking at that and what they deemed as the golden generation or the next golden generation of the Black Stars, and how, there were struggles all over the pitch. And that leads us firmly into what I think is the biggest stain on Otto Addo's legacy, and that was the failure to qualify to the AFCON in Morocco this year. Honestly, still can't be explained, right? Because this is the same team that played World Cup qualifying almost perfectly. But for whatever reason, the AFCON just didn't go well. We struggled to put results together. Again, we mentioned, the Kudus performances. And I will stress that was at the beginning of Otto Addo's tenure. But a lot of people did say that, the group we were in, the likes of Angola, Sudan, Niger, Ghana should have been qualifying for that AFCON. And I still maintain that should have been the case. For whatever reason, it didn't go well. The performances were lacking. We weren't able to play cohesive football. The likes of Semenyo wasn't performing at his highest, level. The likes of Kudus was not performing at his highest level. There was a lot of mismanagement on the part of Otto Addo. I think he himself should raise his hands up and admit that, look, the handling of the whole captaincy situation with Jordan Ayew, with Partey, with Jiku, wasn't handled well, and we saw all of that come to a head where players like Jiku and Partey were actually taking themselves out of the running for AFCON qualifiers, and then handing the captaincies to Kudus sometimes, especially when Jordan was still in the side. How he ostracized the Ayew from the setup. It was a little bit shaky, but I think all things considered, especially with a manager who just came in and was still trying to find his feet, I think a little bit of slack should be cut for him. But regardless, the Ghanaian public were incensed because it just seemed like bad decision after bad decision, and finishing bottom of that group and not qualifying for the AFCON for the first time since I think 2004, 2005 was an absolute disgrace. Ghanaians just could not stomach it, especially considering that a former Ghanaian coach who was coaching Sudan, managed to make it through at the time, because we know that I think the top two did manage to qualify. So not making it into those top two positions was a massive disgrace. And honestly, finishing bottom of the group, losing to Niger in Accra, was probably the lowest point of the tenure of Otto Addo. But we do also have to take into account that Ghanaians in general, we are not super complimentary towards any coach we've ever had in our history. Let's be honest. Looking back, I really can't think of any single coach that has been adored while he had been in the setup. Hindsight is beautiful, right? We've seen the likes of Milovan Rajvac get his flowers. You've seen the likes of Kwesi Appiah even get his flowers post leaving. Otto Addo, after he left the first time, managed to get his flowers. I've actually seen some people actually give Chris Hughton a lot of credits post, him leaving. Claude Leroy also gets his credits, Avram Grant. But in those positions, we can go back to Milovan Rajvac, who probably got Ghana their best ever position in a World Cup. Not probably, actually. And many might actually call him the best coach Ghana have ever had. I remember at the time, the AFCON run we went to in 2010 to make it to the final, there was a lot of flack that was coming his way. How he was managing Michael Essien, Sule Muntari in those games, not starting them. and we're struggling to score goals. There was a lot that was used to beat Milovan Rajvac over the head. Ultimately, he stepped down after the World Cup. We know Avram Grant, who maneuvered us to an AFCON final. Post that, he was always being slandered. He doesn't spend enough time in Ghana. He's not doing the job well. He's not scouting well. All came to head and he was let go. Kwesi Appiah, the way he managed to qualify us to that 2014 World Cup was, beating Egypt 6-1. I don't think we would ever do that again in our history. But yet, off the back of, a very terrible World Cup campaign, which I don't think was necessarily his fault per se, but remember, there were some good performances in there, the draw to Germany. But even then, he came under a lot of scrutiny, was let go, came back, didn't have a fantastic AFCON. I remember we lost to Tunisia in the round of 16 in penalties. Also, slandered to high heaven. Kwesi Appiah is not good enough. CK Akono slandered. Chris Hughton at the last AFCON, he had to literally be protected. He was attacked by fans after the AFCON failure. Milovan Rajvac, the second AFCON that he took us through, was slandered. So I think Ghana in general, we have a problem. We just have a problem. I think we are not a very appreciative group. I think we always feel we could do better than we're actually doing. I don't think Ghanaians, and I put myself in that category as well, I don't think we understand exactly what it takes to play some of these, qualifiers, what it takes to build a team. And I think, especially for Otto Addo, in hindsight, maybe he would get a lot more appreciation than he is getting now, because he actually has managed to qualify us to the World Cup by hook or crook, against the likes of Mali, against the likes of Central African Republic, against the likes of Comoros, Madagascar. These are teams that are all, vying for that position. We see how tough it is. Nigeria are currently going through a whole lot in their own qualifying group, but he's managed to do it. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, honestly, but I think we in Ghana generally, we have a bit of a almost like I always liken Ghana to England, because Gareth Southgate, for everything he did, was always getting, the stick of Charlie, he's not good enough, he has to go. And I think it's just it's the curse of being such a great footballing nation that, the bar is here, right? The bar is actually here. And sometimes I think we need to temper expectations a little bit. Ghana, admittedly, are going through a period of transition. Otto Addo hasn't done a fantastic job overall. I think he's done a good enough job, but he is getting the flack he's getting. But I think that firmly then leads us into the next and final point. Will Ghana actually end up sacking Otto Addo? I don't think so, honestly. I think he has the mandate from the Ghana Football Association to lead this charge. Even in spite of the failings at the African Cup of Nations qualifiers, I think that was the point that if they were going to sack him, they probably would have. A lot of Ghanaians are saying they should sack him anyways before the World Cup, because he cannot take us through a World Cup campaign. I would advise that caution should be exercised, honestly, because every coach comes in with brand new ideas, with a brand new style of play. I don't think this is the best time to have somebody come in and try and figure out the players, try and figure out a system of play. Players now trying to figure out his system of play. I think it would be the wisest decision if Otto Addo is allowed to take the team as far as he can go at the World Cup. And then post that, I think a decision can be taken. But honestly, I have a lot of faith in Otto Addo that he can actually do a good job at the World Cup. Just off the back of the last World Cup, where at the time a relative novice and at the time, not a lot of experience with the team, he still managed to put up a really credible performance against some very top operators. And I think this time around, depending on the kind of group we get and the way things go, I think he'll have a much better time at it. I think his squad is much more settled. I think they have a much bigger capacity to cause a bigger shock. The likes of Semenyo doing well, Fatawu doing well, Kamaldeen Sulemana doing well, Kudus doing well, Jordan doing well, Partey doing well. All of them look super motivated. I think this might actually be the very best chance that we have at a World Cup to date. So yeah, I think Ghana would not end up sacking him, but I'm curious to know you guys' thoughts. I know the general consensus I've seen on social media is that Otto Addo deserves the sack. What do you think, though? If you're watching the video, do you think Otto Addo should be let go before the World Cup? Do you think we should stick with him long term beyond it despite the performances. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, guys. And if you found today's video enjoyable, useful, and just generally an outlet for your frustrations and your thoughts, please consider, first of all, smashing the like button. It really helps us out. Subscribing to the channel Oyibo Sports. We are growing really quickly. We are trying to hit at least 5,000 subscribers before the end of the month. It will really help us out, guys. And consider turning on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any video that we upload immediately as it goes out. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, guys, we go see you for streets.